Does the idea of setting New Year's resolutions fill you with dread? Maybe you are overwhelmed, stuck, don't really know where to start, or maybe you have actually set them before, but what you find is that a few days or weeks later, they're just abandoned. You haven't even started them. And maybe you're giving yourself a hard time about that. Well, you're not alone. So many people with the best of intentions set these New Year's resolutions, but then what they do is they are not aligned with who they really are. They are not meaningful. So that's why one of the reasons why they don't stick. So in today's episode of Coming to Your Senses, I want to do it a little bit differently because I want to give you the opportunity to look at how you can navigate the labyrinth of your mind, especially around this whole thing of New Year's resolutions, which is such a big thing. And I want to make the next year really big and different. But actually, let's look at how you can, whether it's in the 1st of January or at any point in the year, where you can actually set things, goals, intentions, dreams, ambitions that are really aligned with who you are, so that there's more chance of you succeeding. So welcome to this episode of Coming to Your Senses. And what I will invite you to do is grab yourself a pen and paper so that you can, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I'm a coach at my heart, at my core. That's not only what I do for a living, but I think that's part of who and how I show up on a day-to-day basis. So I am going to ask a number of questions throughout this today. Now, obviously, you can listen to the whole thing and then go back, or you can pause it and answer the questions along the way. What I would encourage you to do, though, is to write them down. I know from when I do workshops that a lot of people just look at me and go, yeah, okay, and they're answering it in their head. But there's so much research that proves that by writing something down, it gives us the opportunity to see it. Because when you're thinking something through, we don't actually see it. We might get images, we might get movies even in our head, but we don't see it until it's written down in front of us or drawn out in front of us. And by doing it by hand as opposed to digitally, gives us an opportunity of hand and brain coordination. And by doing that, you're engaging it a lot more. And that, first and foremost, is a great way of helping you get some clarity. So that's what I'm going to encourage you to do. This is about you having clarity so that whether you are goal setting, whether you're intention setting, whether you're just looking to create new habits for yourself, you can do it with far more alignment and far more self-awareness. So let's get started. One of the first things I want to clarify for you is just to give you, in case you've not got an understanding as to what a coach is or does. I saw this quote ages ago and I thought it was a really great way. I often get asked what's the difference between mentoring and coaching. And to me, this was a great way of capturing that answer, which is that a mentor has great answers for your questions, whereas a coach has great questions for your answers. So if we were working one-on-one or if you were in the community, then for me, when you give an answer, I'm going to ask you probably more questions. It might be the same question that I repeat. And the purpose of that, and we can obviously do this for ourselves, is to keep diving down, keep getting that clarity. The more clarity that you have, then that gives you the opportunity to experience that alignment for yourself. I think in this world of access to information and with personal development, spiritual development, self-help, it's been so prominent, but mental health, well-being, all of those things are kind of wrapped in a very similar package, probably wrapping, it's Christmas, wrapping. But I think that what we can end up doing without really meaning to is we can end up taking on other people's. We can take on other people's viewpoints, other people's practices, and they may be helpful and they may give us an insight. They may help us make a shift. It's always worth trying something on for size. But I also think it's really important for ourselves to get clarity on what works for us. I always joke in my membership community, there are a number of people who are runners, and I'm talking like ultra marathon runners and running coaches, actually. And it's just not something that lights me up. I've got great admiration. I genuinely have been out there and had a go, but it's just not my bag. Give me a dance-a-thon or send me to a disco. Yes, I am that old disco. That's great. That's what will light me up. And I think that that's what's important for us to start looking at is what lights you up. If you've listened to the first episode of Coming to Your Senses, you'll know that in the early 2000s, I experienced a breakdown. I tried different therapies, but it was coaching that truly helped me transform my life. Initially, when I discovered coaching, though, I couldn't afford it. And it was a kind soul who sponsored me not only to have coaching, but also to train and become a coach. And my promise to them was that I would pay it forward. And I've done that in many ways over the years, initially through social media and private Facebook group called Confidence Revolution, and also through Coming to Your Senses, the podcast. But it triggered for me a passion to really want to make and create a secure, supportive space for people to be able to come together and have conversations that transform their lives. So I created the Conscious Conversations community. It's a group where we meet on more than once a month. We have a focused theme, which is guided by the community and facilitated by me. There's hundreds of hours of learning and resources and materials to help you transform your life in a like-minded space. Because I get passionate about it and because this was my promise to pay it forward, I'm offering you the opportunity to trial it for £1 for the first month. If that appeals to you, then head to juleswyman.online/conscious conversations offer. juleswyman.online/conscious conversations offer to explore what's available for you through being part of a conscious community. Hopefully, I've given you enough of time to go and grab yourself that pen and paper, because the first step is we want to get clarity. We want to gain some clarity for the future by reflecting on the past. So you may want to, if you really want to do this in depth, then I would encourage you to go and look at whichever way that you've captured, whether it's online diary, paper diary, whether you keep a journal. I'd encourage you to go and reflect through those. If you don't do those things, then give yourself the space to take the time to reflect through this. One of the questions that I would encourage you to think about is, what moments in the past year have you experienced being truly alive and aligned? What moments of the past year, when and where, have you experienced being truly alive and aligned? So just to give you some examples, for me, I have it's something I've wanted to do for a long time, but only just managed to be able to get a course in, actually is in December this year. And it's drumming, not big kit drumming, but Japanese drumming. And for me, there's always been something, even listening to it, that just ignites something within me. And I find it a bit trance-like, so it becomes kind of meditative, but I love the rhythmic nature of it, being part of a group or playing together. I love that. And I've only been doing it for maybe 6 or 7 weeks, but I really feel alive during that. That's something for me that I feel alive with. And I know that I'm aligned when something, doesn't matter actually, whether even during work, that it's, even if I'm doing something that's a challenge, even if I'm doing something new, even if I'm doing something that maybe I'm uncomfortable with, but I get the sense of, I'm going to use the word ease, which is not the same as easy, but I get the sense of it being easeful. That's when I know I'm aligned. So they're the kind of moments you want to capture. Where in the past year, which if you've got a memory like mine, that's why you'll want to go back and look through diaries or journals or anything like that. Where have you experienced being truly alive and aligned? Take a moment to capture those. Also think about, what challenges have you had this year, but they've really taught you something. They've really taught you something about you. And be careful not to fall into the camp of don't go near that person again. Because actually what it can be more about is, I know for myself, there's been a couple of interactions with people this year that have been really challenging. And it's given me the opportunity to reflect and go, I need to be aware of the behaviors that I do that invite that in and that accept that. So I need to have an awareness of that. It's not about the other person. I'm not looking to change the other person's behavior. That's their responsibility. My responsibility is me. But what challenges have you experienced this year that have really taught you something about yourself? Maybe you have faced something that you wouldn't have thought possible and come out the other side. Maybe you said yes to something where you would have said no before. Take a moment and capture that as well. And what areas of your life do you think could do with more attention next year? So I know, for example, for me, I genuinely am not good at taking holidays. And it's not for any other reason than I love my work and I just forget. I think partly because I don't have children. And so I've never had that sort of like school holiday rhythm that many people have. You know, they book out that half term, they reference that, or they're very aware of bank holidays. When I used to work in theatre, bank holidays weren't a thing. We just worked. Christmas, most of the time I tended to just get Christmas Day off. So I haven't had that instilled in me as a young adult, and even into my 30s, really. I have to consciously think about that. So that's an area of my life I know that I want to give more attention to next year. What about you? What areas of your life do you think would be of value for you to give more attention to next year? Now, what I want to talk about now is about that alignment and about how we very easily can be out of alignment because we get caught up in our conditioning, because, you know, keeping up with the Joneses or the Kardashians, or we look at what other people are doing on social media and we think that it's the right thing to do, or that because they're doing it, I should be doing it. But actually, that can end up taking us off our internal compass, and whether that's our moral compass, our ethical compass, or even just our values compass. And that's where we want to be aligned with, because it will fuel your motivation and help you prioritize those changes that you truly want to make because they're important to you. So if you've never taken the time to define your core values, for example, then here's a couple of ideas for you. So reflect on a moment where you experienced true fulfillment. What values would you say you experienced at that point? So, you know, it could be things like you want to capture a good 3 to 5 words with things like, you know, honesty, humor, fun, excitement, growth, joy. Making a difference often comes up as a value, although I often have a debate with people about that. But have a think about it. Now, you can go onto any search engine and discover a list of values, but really start to look at what's right for you, what works for you in relation to that, what's really going to make a difference for you, and jot those down. So reflect on moments this year. You may have had one, you may have had 20 or more. But reflect on moments this year where you have experienced that real deep sense of fulfillment. It's those moments where time flies, you know, where you really are, wow, was 4 hours gone that quickly? Because what that's going to do is it's going to give us the opportunity to find out what they were, and therefore then look for more of those moments. So it's like I was saying earlier, I know that there are certain types of challenge that even though that I know I'm being challenged, I really enjoy it because there's a sense of ease within it, because growth and curiosity are very high on my value system. So take the time to be able to do that as well before you even start setting any goals. Because otherwise, what I notice happens is that, and there's a particular client that's coming to mind. I'm going to call her Sarah, mainly because I've got a lot of clients called Sarah, so that kind of blurs the edges as to who I might be talking about. They will know, but you won't. But what I noticed when she came to me initially, there's 2 words that I hear a lot, is that I feel stuck, or I'm lost, is another way that people will phrase it. Very senior, very professional, had set a lot of professional goals, and year after year was achieving them, and found herself not only reaching them, but also burnt out, really not knowing where to go, having that loss of direction. That's why the sense of feeling stuck. And there was no spring in her step. So what we did was we started to dig deeper about as to what her goals actually were. And we realized she had great clarity around this. It was like, it's one of the beautiful things about being a coach that I enjoy anyway, is watching that ping, that light bulb go on for people where they discover that what they thought they were doing, which was the quote unquote right thing to be doing, is that they've been, striving for these goals and they're gaining these goals and they can't understand why they still don't feel great. And then they realize that they've been following somebody else's goals, and that actually the goals that she had attained and is extremely successful, is that they were out of alignment with her. They weren't actually matching up her core values. And so by chasing those external desires, external validations, actually, whilst she could achieve them, it wasn't filling her inside. It was all of the outside looked great, but internally it didn't. That's why it's so important to take the time to reflect. So we did what I've shared with you and really looked at going at those core values, which for her was very much around that connection, growth, and making an impact. And once we got really clear on those, and actually, if I remember correctly, whilst we had those 3 words as a headline, we dived even more to get her definitions on that. So she knew, it's like by doing this, you then have a traffic light system to be able to work out, yes, that thing fits in with that. No, that thing doesn't fit in with that. Therefore, that's going to guide me to alignment. That's going to take me out of alignment. And that's what we were doing. And once she was clear on that, she set one goal to be able to do that. And what she also did within that was then looked at taking that practice into her team, so that everybody knew what their values were, so that when opportunities were coming up from a work perspective, they were all in alignment. They knew whose buttons that would light and ignite. And so therefore it made it, the team was becoming more in alignment. And I know that from her reflection, every time I catch up with her, she talks about how there's a lightness, even when there's tough stuff going on. And actually there's quite a lot of tough stuff going on within her professional world at the moment. But there's a lightness with how she's facing it, because she knows she doesn't have to swim upstream with things. She can go with the tide, or if she is swimming upstream, she's bringing other people with her, and she knows why it's a tougher thing at that moment, because it's out of alignment. It doesn't make her wrong, but she's very clear on what's going on at that point. So it removes so much stress, so much tension, and obviously burnout. So that's why this is important to do. So what I'd encourage you to do, if you haven't paused this as we've gone through, is to go back and re-listen to these questions. Take the time. It's very easy to give glib answers. I know that I have spent far too many years doing that. It's still enabled me to achieve stuff, but it doesn't get you to the real juicy, deep, soul-fulfilling things. And it means that you don't, I certainly didn't then follow through on things. And that's the purpose of why I wanted to share this, especially at this time of year, because we can all get very caught up in those external striving because they're doing it and that's what society says we should be doing. But actually really taking the time to stop and go, what's in alignment for me? How can I reach that? Why do I want to do that? How is that going to impact my life? Who can help me? And that's a key thing, actually. Who can help me? Because what I would encourage you to do is find somebody that you can share these insights with, the reflections that you've had and the intentions that you then end up setting, is find someone that you can share that with. So someone, hopefully within your friendship, family or work circle, share this podcast with them, get them to do it with you, and then you can sit and have a conversation about it. If you don't have somebody like that in your life, then in the show notes, you will find a link for the Facebook group, private Facebook group called Confidence Revolution. Come and join the community in there. There's people in there. I'm in there. It is absolutely an opportunity for you to be able to come into that group and know that you can share what your values are, share what you can share your alignments within there. So other people may be going, well, hang on a second, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? So make sure that you take the time to do that. That's what's really important, because we all need to keep ourselves accountable. I have a coach. I have a mentor. I have a community that I'm part of. I have colleagues that I share things with. It's taken me a number of years to get that support team around me. That's without even referencing my friends who are also bloody amazing and really helpful as well. So take the time, because then you can share these intentions, share these goals. And accountability isn't about them judging you, but it is about them going, well, if you're not doing it, then is it really in alignment, or what is getting in your way? It's about us all supporting each other. So make sure you take the time to do this. I wish you every great success for 2025 and beyond, whatever that means for you. And remember that clarity isn't about doing more. It's about doing what matters most to you. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. Here is to a new year that is fulfilled, aligned, and purposeful with a lot of growth. And I'll see you on the next episode of Coming to Your Senses.